Hello traders, Rich here and welcome to a new episode on how to analyze any chart from scratch without using any indicators, just by applying basic price action concepts and market structure 101. So let's get started, and as usual, cheers. Today we have episode number 34, which is a Forex Practice Time Euro JPY. If you aren't familiar with the series, don't worry. I'll make sure to attach the entire playlist, which includes all the videos by order, in the description below. And I also attach my Telegram channel, where I forward the analysis and videos from TradingView and YouTube in case you want to get notified. So let's do it. For those who already know, we always start from the higher time frames, weekly and daily, which we call our rejection time frames, to know where we stand in the market. Are we overall bullish, bearish, or stuck inside a range, right? And as price approaches the upper bound, which is our resistance area, we'll be looking for sell setups. It can be horizontal or non-horizontal. Vice versa, as price approaches the lower bound, it can also be horizontal or non-horizontal. We'll be looking for buy setups. It's very important to start from these time frames because to get the big picture, because once you know where we are in the market, then you zoom into lower time frames to look for setups. So as price approaches the resistance, I'll be looking for sell. The support, I'll be looking for buy. But if the price is sitting in the middle of nowhere, I'm not looking for setups. Sometimes no trade is also a trade. And our main job as traders is to identify our edge. So I don't want to look for setups because price here, like it can either go down or up, right? However, as it approaches the support, we've got more probability that the price would go up than down. The market can do whatever it wants, can do its thing, as I always say. You can't really predict what might happen next, but what you can control is your risk. That's the only thing you can control, in fact. So our main job as traders, because we are risk managers, not only traders, is to identify our edge and look for setup where we have more probability that to win than to lose. That's first. Second, when we win, we have to win more than when we lose. So even with a 50% win rate, we are overall doing good. Okay. Anyway, we'll talk about risk management hopefully in the next videos. We've got three types of rejections which we can find on higher time frames. A typical supply and resistance where we have many failed attempts to break above or below a certain level or area. A trend line, which is basically the same as supply and resistance, but this time it's a non-horizontal supply and resistance. And like its name is like says it all. Trend lines. We have a trend and we have a line covering this trend, like either downward, just like this one, or upward. The third type of rejection is a supply and demand zone. So when we have an aggressive movement downward from a certain area, we've got a supply zone. And as price approaches it again, we'll be looking for sell setups, and vice versa. When we have an aggressive movement upward, we've got a demand zone. That's price retested, we'll be looking for buy setups. So let's do just that on Euro JPY, and let's start with our supply and resistance. For those who watched the previous videos, know that it's pretty simple. You always draw a random line on your chart and drag and drop it in a way to connect as many swings as possible. Typically, as per my trading plan, I only go for the ones that we've got three swings. And it can be, as you can see here, two highs, one low, two lows, one high, three highs, three lows, because I call it a support and resistance, right? And not only a support, not only a resistance. So here we've got 1, 2, and 3. So that's a valid support and resistance. As price approaches it from the upper side, we'll be looking for buy. Unless broken downward, it becomes what? A resistance, and we'll be looking for sell on the retest. Okay, so let's do it. If we go down, we can see that around here we've got what? An aggressive movement downward. So we've got what? A supply zone, and it's also what? Around number 50. And anyway, if you zoom out, maybe you can find that price respected previously. You know what? Let me zoom out. Here we go. We've got a resistance here, rejected it downward, broke it upward, rejected it upward again, so as support, and then as you can see it acted as support here, and price broke it downward, acted as resistance, and so on. But anyway, it's around number 50, 150, and a supply zone. So as price approaches it, we'll be looking for sell setups. Unless broken upward, just like previously, then it would become support again. So let's keep this one. Now let's go for blue and move downward. Okay, so I only have one swing here. I want at least 3 swings or main rejection. Here we go. We've got some rejections here, but it's only one. If you make it lower a little bit, here we go. We've got many rejections from this area. We can see that we've got some here, a rejection here, resistance here, again and again, right? So it's an entire area as usual. It's not a laser level, so we should always draw it like an offset. So here we go. And you can see that this one is around 140, right? And let's do for this one 136.5. Fantastic, right? So now this one is covering the entire like wicks or range before we get this rejection here as well, here and here as well. Now let's go for green and let's move down. We can see that we can't really connect many swings here. Now this one is getting choppy, right? So if we go lower, we can see that we've got clear rejections here, here, here as well, right? So we've got many rejections from this one. So let's go for 126.5. And let's make it a little bit lower to cover the rejections here, as you can see here as well, and so on. Let's go for 124.5. Fantastic. So we've got our support here, and we also got like, if you can make it even higher, like 127, right? But let's keep it as clean as possible. We've got here, we've got to cover this one, to cover this one, right? So, but let's keep it this way for now to keep it as clean as possible. But you should like make it like this, right? So this is an entire support area. Let me make it cleaner. Here we go. And if you move lower, we can see one rejection here, but I can't really see an rejection. But if I make it lower a little bit, I can see some rejections around this area, right? So multiple rejections here, 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 and so on. So let's go for 118. And we've got a very clear one, which is around this area, right? So multiple rejections, like massive movements from this particular area here, 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 and so on, which is around 110, which is also a strong round number. So this is basically it. Let's do blue for this one. I might be quick a little bit, but because like this one usually takes time, but you can like always practice. Practice makes perfect. So that's it from weekly time frame. Then when we're done with the zoomed out picture, we always go for the zoomed in picture too to monitor the market structure or the price action. You can see that the price is stuck currently inside this range between our resistance and our support area, right? So that's it. Lower impulse movement, lower correction, impulse correction, and then we got this impulse movement lower. This one was due to the war news last week, and then price is currently in this recovery and aggressive movement upward after retesting the support area. So now we can see that we've got what? A demand area here, as we got an aggressive movement upward from it. We previously had a supply zone here, a supply zone here, a demand area here, right? A demand area here, as you can see, price filled it and traded higher. A supply zone here, price filled it, traded lower. Another supply zone, filled it, traded lower, and so on, right? So this is just from weekly time frame. Now let's try and zoom into lower time frames. And like sometimes when you have so many supply and resistance from weekly, chances are that you might not find a lot of supply and resistance from lower time frames. But if you zoom in, let me zoom in, we can see like the range in a cleaner manner, as we can see here. And we've got many rejections from this area. So we also got a support and resistance here from daily time frame, right? So we've got multiple rejections from here. Let's make this one a little bit higher to cover this wick. Let's go for 137.3. And we've got a support and resistance here, as you can see. Let me draw it anyway. Let's go for orange for this one, because we've got green here and we've got blue here, right? So 134.2, let's say, and let's go for 133.2 as well. I'm just trying to be as quick as possible to keep this video short, because we've got many other things to get into now. So this is basically it. And we previously got, for those who watched my analysis on TradingView, we previously got this channel. The price was trading inside this one. And like, if you remember, here we go. And if you remember, we were looking for sell setups here. We were looking for buy setups here, right? For those who have been following me for a while, we've got this channel from, here we go, this impulse movement lower, this impulse movement lower. We've got our two swings. We drew this trend line, then we made an offset for it, and we found this lower band. So we looked for buy setups here first, and then we looked for sell setups here next. And previously, we were looking for sell here because we've got a resistance area. It's also a supply zone. Anyway, let's focus on the current price action. Price now is trying to break the structure, right? It's trying to break this channel, and of course price like wouldn't be able to trade in this channel for like forever, right? Eventually it has to be broken upward or downward. And as we can see, due to the news like a couple of weeks ago, we had this aggressive movement downward, ejected the support and traded higher. So now the range is being expanded, right? So we're trading inside this range. It's like in a non-horizontal flat range, falling range, right? And then price went down. It's like a bow and arrow, right? So we went down a little bit and then we went straight forward next, right? So it's like a bow and arrow. If you've got like this one and then boop, and then went up in an aggressive manner. So we might see the same thing. So the range is just expanding, or it would be just a fake out, and then we've got a whole new bullish trend trading higher. Okay, so we can't really know, because as mentioned previously, you don't predict what might happen next. Always wait for the market to make the first move and then react accordingly. So what we know from daily is that we've got a range, price traded lower. We've got two possible scenarios. The first one is it's just an expander for the range, and we will see the same exact movement from here. So we've got one and we've got the two, or it would be this one was a fake out before going in the correct direction next. In this case, we would need to see another bullish candle closing above this area. In this case, this area would become a support. It was acting as a resistance previously. This case will become a support, and we'll be looking for buy on the retest. Right? But for now, and until this happens, until we've got an aggressive break above it, we can still trade lower from here. And if we go to weekly time frame, we can see that, here we go, we can see that the price is still inside this range, right? It's still respecting this movement here. Of course, unless we have a weekly close and a daily candle closing above this area, then a movement till our next resistance would be expected. Okay, so that's what we know from so far. Let me read these ones to keep the chart clean. And if we go to H4 time frame, we can't really add much. What we know is we were bearish, price broke above the previous highs, now bullish, price broke below the previous low, a classic retest, went lower, now bearish, lower highs and lower lows, and price broke the structure here and then traded higher. So for now, we are bullish, but seems to be overextended, right? So if we measure the previous movements here, we can see that we've got lower movement, higher, lower, higher, lower, higher, and look at this movement. So if we follow the same cycle, we know that sooner or later we'll get another move down. Of course, unless we got an aggressive movement upward, then this would be confirmed to be broken upward. Now, if we zoom into H1 time frame, we can see that the impulse movements are getting like smaller in size and more flat. So we've got our first impulse, right? A correction, another impulse movement upward, a flat correction, which means that the buyers are still in control and broke this range upward, meaning that the bulls are remained in control and pushed higher. Then we've got a deeper correction, right? So this is the first time from this movement here, if we compare it like small, flat correction, this is the first time we see a deep correction. Of course, the buyers are still in control, but it's just an early alert or an indication that we might have a reversal. Next, if we compare the swings, we've got a steep one, right? An aggressive one. Then we've got a more flat one, right? So if you compare this movement to this movement, look at how flat this one is compared to the first impulse, right? That's first. Second, and we can see that this one is getting even flatter, right? So here we go. And you can see like a movement like this, which means that sooner or later, we might have a shift in momentum from bullish to bearish. But for the buyers, or for the sellers in this case, to take full control, we still need to see a break below the previous low. So this was our low. Price made a higher low, right? New low. And this one is now our last low. So for the sellers to take over, we need to see a break below it, which would also mean a break inside the range again. If you go to H4 time frame, let's go to daily time frame. You know what? Let me make it appear on daily first. Here we go. So if you go to daily time frame, we can see that if price trades lower and break below this area, it would mean that the price is now back inside this range, just like previously. Here we go. You had our high here. You know what? Let me show you as a practical example. Here we go, right? So traded lower and lower and lower, and then we've got our high here. Then price broke above it and back inside the range. Okay, so from H1 time frame, that's our last high. And like from a market structure perspective, for the sellers to take over, we need to see the last low broken downward, just like previously. If you apply the same logic, here we go, last high, let's go back a little bit, last high broken upward, and so on, right? You've got like a range, and that's it. So sellers took over, buyers took over, sellers took over, buyers took over. Now we're waiting for the sellers, if you apply the same logic, to take over. Next, if you zoom in a little bit, right? I always like to start from the zoom out and then zoom in. So if we zoom in a little bit, we can see that we've got a channel forming lately. Of course, it's just an idea. Price can invalidate it like real quick. So that's it. Okay, so we got our channel forming, and if we get a third swing around the lower trend line, it would be our new last high, because now this is our last high. All right, in this case, we'll update it, or we'll delete this one, and we'll be waiting for this low break downward to enter the sell, because for now, last low. If this one is formed, then this would be the last low, and I will not only like sell if it's broken down, but also for extra confirmation, let's wait for these lows here, which would be the 133.2. Or like if you are extra conservative, you can wait for this one as mentioned previously, no matter what we have here. If you have a channel, head and shoulders pattern, or anything. And we might also have a head and shoulders pattern. So left shoulder, head, and you might have the right shoulder like this. We can't really know, right? So I can draw like many scenarios, but like we can't really know until it happens. That's very important, because now if you enter immediately, because price around the resistance, price kept moving higher, enter immediately, price can still go higher, right? So don't try to pick the exact top and bottom. And like lately, if you check like the entire Forex market, for those who are trying to pick the exact top and bottom, has been suffering for a while, because price keeps on trading in the same direction on AUD pairs, NZD pairs, JPY pairs, and so on. Okay, so that's basically it for your JPY. You are overall bullish from a medium-term perspective, stuck inside the range from a long-term perspective, waiting for the sellers, are approaching a resistance area, waiting for the sellers to take over. Let me delete these ones that are annoying. Like, I like to keep my chart as clean as possible. So long story short, inside a big range, price is around the resistance area, waiting for the sellers to take over to enter the sell, because we're expecting the price to reject this resistance. Unless price breaks upward, it would become support, and we'll be looking for buy on the retest. So that's it for this episode. Best of luck, and I'll see you on the next one.